Okay, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the press conference. Today we've got the great pleasure of having with us the actress Penelope Cruz, who's going to be receiving the Donosti Award for her career. So please, if you'd be so kind, please raise your hands for the microphone to ask questions. Hi Penelope, good afternoon. How are you? Congratulations for the award, thank you. I would like to ask you, so many years in film, because you've spent quite a few, what have you learnt from film? What has film taught you about yourself? And then, of all of the colleagues that you've had on the journey, which have had very many and very good, who has impressed you, or truly impressed you? Well, what has film taught me about myself? Well, so much, because I was practically a little girl when I commenced. When I was 14 or 15 years old, I was already doing some work. And Jamón and Belle Époque was shot when I was 17 and 18. I've grown up in films. I've discovered a lot of things about myself. I think that any job that you have will accompany you the way you grow. But in our job, the truth is our instrument are ourselves. Emotions, we have to study human behavior. For me, it's fascinating because it's a well which has no end, really. When you feel that you've learnt everything that you have to learn about how complex of human behavior is, what moves us and motivates us, what makes us be how we are, each and every one of us. But for me, that's the most fascinating thing about being an actor and portraying characters. When I was 4 or 5 years old, when I was a young girl, I loved to play on my own and to act out roles, because that's what I played at, of setting up situations and to be different people. And so with that, I felt a lot of freedom, sort of escape. And it wasn't escaping from myself. It was like, as you said, like you said, it made me look inside me and to learn more about myself. And then an actor can't work too much with his or her ego. For example, this has a parallel side where that mixes up a bit with the rest of it, whether we like it or like. But when we're preparing a character and try to understand a character, that has to stay somewhere else. And I think that we grow because it makes you feel much more empathy and understanding and compassion towards characters that perhaps wouldn't be people with whom you would like to even take a coffee with, people that you respect or admire or you would like, but an actor can't judge the characters he or she portrays. So therefore, that's how you start to see things from another position, and the actor includes that in his or her life. Well, I've been very fortunate with the directors with whom I've worked, and the actresses and actors. Many of them have become friends, as is the case of my friend Goya Toledo or Salma, people that I met working and that have been in my life almost 30 years now. Or Edgar, for example. The relationship that I've got with Edgar is much more than just a working companion. He's a very, very good friend. And now and again, you take something along with that. You can't force that. It doesn't always happen that way. But it's true that when you shoot a film, on the shoot, very close relations, because they're very intense processes. From my first shoot in Jamón on the last day, I collapsed because I said, well, if this is going to be the first and the last film, because I felt so good in a shooting of the film, I felt that it was the place where I wanted to be. And I really collapsed, and I looked at Bigas. I said, well, we'll see what happens. If I'm lucky, I could perhaps live another experience like this on another day. And he said, don't worry, you will. And I didn't know whether I could believe him or not, but thank God that I've been very, very fortunate. Yes, someone in the front. Oh, sorry. I thought there was a queue. Hi. Hi. Congratulations for this deserved award. The other day, a colleague said, well, we journalists don't know how to tell how such a hard worker that Penelope is. And I thought, well, that's true. That is to say that this woman gets involved into really complicated situations when she works because of language issues, and also physically you get rid of your because you have your age and you're at the age you are. And I would like you to reflect upon or tell us a bit about that Penelope Cruz, who's a hard worker, which you most like about this work, and also how you get away from, because you're portraying the women of your age, and that I appreciate that my age, and sometimes women who are older, or in the second film that I did with Castelito, the character was from 20 to 50 years of age. But that's a challenge for any of us, a challenge that we receive with open arms, just like saying what's the physique or the appearance of whether she's afraid or she's got to have Italia, for example. No, the other character of Castelito. No, we're there to serve the character in this story. And just like we decide a place where ego doesn't make an opinion, how that character walks, how that character talks, what language, what accent. In the same way, we have to decide what the physique or the appearance of that character is. So I live that as something, live through that as something very good. I've never been interested in portraying the same character twice, nor characters that are similar to me. I think that's the most difficult thing to do. Sometimes we do get them, and the similar they are, there's less distance between you and the character. It's more difficult to create something interesting because that's where we really fly, and that distance between ourselves and the characters we portray. So therefore, thank you very much. And hardworking, well, I think that's one of the indispensable to be a hard worker if you want to work as an actor or an actress. That was natural because I started to work at such a young age, but that's what I saw at home, the values vis-a-vis work and the family, and a series of things that we grew up with our feet on the earth, really soundly based. And that's what I owe to them more than my merit. My merit is to be there. Each of us have got to respond at a given moment and to be responsible for what they do and what and whatever happens in their lives. But I think that perhaps this is something that was taught to me by classic ballet. It's 17 years of classic ballet. Having started to work so young, but I had so much training in ballet, so therefore my attitude was almost a military attitude to work. And the hours that we need, whether it's cold or it's hot, whether we're hungry or not, it formed part of the work, and also to feel so thankful for having a job, which is a job with which I've always dreamed. And those years when I started to see the opportunities were repeated, and we started to set up form a career, and it wasn't 3, and then of some 10 or 15 films, and the thanks of being able to live doing what you like. For me, the way of thanking life was to always to go the extra yard in each character and each project, to try to give the most I could. The result is always relative. It's not going to depend only upon that. But I can tell you, in the ones that I've come out well and have not come out well, I've always sort of worked at them as if it was the first or the last film. And I always do things this way to try to give the maximum amount possible from me. Hi, good morning. Obviously, I want to congratulate you for your award and all your career. I would like to ask you, when you won the Oscar, for example, congratulations for that too, by the way. In your speech, when you mentioned Alcobendas, did they say anything in people in Hollywood and the Academy were they interested in a certain way of Alcobendas or anything regarding Alcobendas? And then also, could you please talk about whether when you're in Hollywood or working, whether you miss the calm, quote-unquote, of working in Spain. Thank you. Well, I spend quite more time here than there. I go there when I have to work or several meetings are held, but I spent a lot of years in which I was spending more time there than here, and I was traveling backward and forth, and I didn't stop flying, but that's in the past now. Once you become a mother, my priority is to be a mother, so therefore you have to look about where and when the shoots are and how long they're going to last and many other things. But what you were talking about, the speech in Alcobendas, of course they were asking me what was my life there in Alcobendas, and I don't live too far away really from there, so therefore, and I occasionally walk around the streets where I spent a lot of years with my family, and it always impresses you, to anyone, the street and the house where you were brought up, of course. Another question over there on the right. Yes. I would like congratulations for the award. Thank you. I'm not too sure. Looking back 20 years, you came to Spain with Con Todos Mentiras 20 years ago. What's left of that young girl with all the recognition that you've had in your career? And what feelings is it for you to receive this award from the San Sebastian Film Festival? And perhaps, do you think it's a bit early, because I think you're the youngest to receive this award? Maybe it's a little early for what you've still got left in your career. Yes, well, in fact, I asked Mr. Rebordinis when he called me. I said, "I'm sure. Are you sure? Because I'm not sure. We should wait a few more years. I don't know." And then, as I'm like an Almodovar character, I started to think something bad is going to happen to me. Perhaps, I don't know if I receive the award, but all of that I've digested it. I feel like being here and to receiving the award, and to remember these opportunities that they give you a prize. What's that for? To thank and to share it with the people that have been there from the start. And that's the beautiful thing, that is to say, it's not only about you, that there's a lot of tough work behind, as you were saying. Undoubtedly there is, and that's there, and that's a reality, and how fortunate that I've had the opportunity to do so. But that there have been a lot of people there backing me from the beginning. First of all, my family, because we didn't have any reference near us, no relatives or friends or anyone who dedicated themselves to films or any job related to art. So the day when I told them I wanted to be an actress, well, they said, "I want to be an astronaut." So therefore they never closed that door on me. But they were afraid, and they always said, have a plan B, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult. We don't know anyone that has managed to achieve it. So therefore, I thank them very much that they didn't laugh at me when I told them. And there are so many people that I have to thank. And the festival, of course, for having chosen me for this award, which is a very great honor. It's a festival that I have a certain endearment to it, because every time I've come here, I've enjoyed it very much. One of the times was with Vigas as well, I recall. Another one with Castelito, another one with Fernando de Leon. So I've got good, I remember it dearly. Penelope, hi, congratulate you, please. And when you're preparing Blow, I remember you presented it with Bonavero, and you asked me, please, to find a Colombian that would help you with the accent. And then you've done other characters which are difficult, which is Lebrina Vallejo, and then you did that beautiful character, Isabela Oliveira. All of those characters, how have they gotten you closer to Latin America? What was that work, and what's left? What did they contribute to you? What's left? Well, a lot, because apart from going through the accents that I'd learned and the people with whom I prepared some of those accents, with some of them I spent months with those people, like my teacher. Well, the truth is not a teacher. He's my cinema director, Pavel Giraud, who had prepared me in the film. Yoleriaseas, that is to say, Yoleriaseas is the most difficult accent, the Cuban accent, but it's an accent that I love, and we spent months together, so therefore you discover a lot through that time or over that time with these people who help you with your accent. Teach you a lot about those cultures and those places, and then many times we have the privilege of shooting on location, and in the films that you've named, such was the case, just like in Asaya's film, At Least 1 Month. So therefore, that's another one of the things that make me feel good about my job, that is to say, to travel and to discover other ways of life and cultures by living there and having the excuse that you've got to ask questions for your character. Well, you're always asking questions, and that's what I do when I'm shooting. I'm in the process of research almost, and always seeking the character. So therefore, that's the most interesting part of my work. It's much more than the shoot sometimes of the film, shooting of the film. Congratulations back here, Penelope. About San Sebastian, I would like to ask you, what beautiful memories do you have of the last few years, and how have you felt the warmth of all of the people that were yesterday when you received, and now when you came into the Cursal? Thank you very much. The people is very, very kind to me always, and this year I felt it even more. And there were people, very young people as well, last night when I arrived, and they hugged me a lot, and I hugged them as well, because I see a little boy and girl and I fall to pieces undoubtedly, and so therefore they very kindly have received me. I'd love to be able to come here every year. I love to come here. Hi, Penelope. Congratulations for the award. I would like to ask you about that moment of inflection when you go to Hollywood, and I imagine that created a lot of fear and a lot of insecurity as well as dreams. I would like you to talk about those expectations, those dreams, and the fear that generated bringing about that change of stage of going to Hollywood. Well, the truth is, my story wasn't of needing to pick up a suitcase and buy a flight with not a one-way flight. You see if I was lucky. That would have been much more fearful. I was shooting in Spain, and I did an audition for Stephen Frears, and I did it at Katrina Bayonna's office. We sent it, and he offered me the character, so therefore that was the first time, and I went there with a return ticket. But I was more relaxed. I'm going to do this film in English, American market, and then I'll come back and I'll continue to work here, and then the same thing happened with the next few films. But for the first 5 years, I was always going back and forth between the States and here. For some reason, it made me feel much safer and more secure, and I didn't want to stop working in Europe. Not only in my country, I've worked in France and Italy. I didn't want to give in to that. I didn't want to be able to do both things. So therefore, quite fortunately, I've been able to do so in the last few years. But I never went that I'm going to play everything on one trump card. No, because I was working in Spain. I wouldn't have been able to do it that way because I didn't want to miss what I've already was building here in my career. Hi, good afternoon. First of all, my effusive congratulations for your deserved award. Thank you. And of the so many directors with whom you have worked, I'm going to ask you, from your experience, give us an adjective to define Pedro Almodóvar, Fernando Trueba, and Arias Luna. Yes. Well, defining someone with one adjective is impossible. These are people with whom I've spent a lot of time, and very important people. They're much more than just directors with whom I've worked with. So with Pedro, I've got a very special link, but even from the day we met practically, and it's something that grows each day. And we almost read our minds. We're at that level of connection between each other, so that we can never fool ourselves, and that's what I love. Because when you shoot a film, that's a great benefit. But he's someone who's almost from my family. He's a relative. He's a person who's very close to me, And Bigas, well, we miss him on days like today because he's the person that gave us our first opportunity to Javier and I at the same time in the same film, and we loved him very much. As we never knew that he was ill, we weren't able to say farewell to him, and that was his choice, and it's totally respectful. He was a person who's very special for us, and Fernando the same. He's someone who's very important in my career and in my life. The year of Jamón Jamón was also the year of Belle Époque, so for me those two films opened up a lot of doors, and I would always be thankful to him for that. Okay, let's do a big round of applause for Penelope before we continuing. Let's welcome in this moment to part of the cast of the film WASP Network, a special projection due to the Donosti Award winner. We've got here now Gabriel García Bernal, actor, Edgar Ramirez, actor, and Penelope Cruz continues to be with us, actress, and an Donosti Award winner. Okay, you can ask for the microphone if you would like to ask a question.
To all three of you. I wanted to ask a question. I wanted to ask Penelope a question, but now I'll ask all three of you. I'm an upcoming director, and I wanted to know, in your opinion, what is the ideal collaboration between an actor and a director? And or describe how was your best collaboration?
Yeah, with Olivier or in general?
In general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that it, well, I mean, you definitely want a director that knows what he or she, what they are doing. I mean, you definitely want that. You want someone who has a strong vision, who knows exactly what they want to tell, but at the same time are flexible and open enough to receive new inputs and to explore the story together. I think that would be, for me, the most ideal scenario.
And for me, the ideal collaboration is always a lot of trust, I guess, a lot of synergy, that we're jumping into the same adventure, and a willingness to explore together mystery, to explore the unknown, to try out things, to have fun, to have joy, to make mischievous things, and later, I don't know, hope for the best. Yeah.
He's a great director, by the way, Kyle. So, yeah.
For me, I agree. I mean, when you've worked for a while, for a few years, you do expect to feel included in some decisions, and it's about mutual respect and trying to create something together. And I feel it's like that for every department. And that's what I love about making movies, that it's supposed to be a team of people working together. And because it's sometimes dangerous, no, for the job of an actor, like if the fear makes you work more alone, but the more you are together, seeing the others and working together, but you need a director that appreciates that way of working. To make that happen. Is the director of an orchestra of emotions, and if the director doesn't get that, it's not going to happen.
Another question on the left. Hi, good morning. Congratulations once again. Penelope, 2 years ago, we asked you whether you would like to direct a film, and you said yes, that perhaps. How has your mind changed or developed, or your mind or whatever, over the last 2 years? Have you taken any steps towards that? Have you thought about it better? Thank you. Well, yes, I say it every day. Since I was 16, The first time I told Pedro in La Gloria, the bar, I said, Pedro, do you know what I really want to do is to direct a film? He said, do it now. You've got to do it when you're young, because if you feel it, it's because you've got to do it. So now I'm 45 and I still haven't dared to do so. I haven't had time also, which is a good sign. But Edgar always encourages me to do so. And she should direct me, by the way. That would be great as well. I'm interested in that as well. I've got a lot of witnesses here, so therefore, that who would be the protagonist? It would be an honor for me to have. She's got a good eye and she's very talented and she understands drama very well. And obviously, I've had the great honor of working with Penelope several times. I think we've been in several projects, 3 projects in a row, and it's incredible what she contributes to the projects and the creation of the scenes and how you understand the scenes. And I've started used to working with you, and we're going to sign that in the contract now to continue to work together because it's so easy to work. It's a beautiful process. Front row. Hi. First of all, congratulations for the award and congratulations to the 3 of you for the film. I would like to ask you about the characters that you portray in the film. To what extent preparing the role has to do with informing yourselves about the real people that inspire the story, and to what extent you've got to invent something as a character to add credibility or fiction to the story? Well, it always depends. It all depends upon the film. It depends upon the point of view of the director or man or woman, but depends on what you want to undertake. And it's difficult to measure to what extent this can be done. I think that all the information we have is information. Everything helps you, I think, to enjoy, and you enjoy it very much, because to portray a role is like being in a process of falling in love always. You're always finding something that can convey something of the character that helps in the construction of the contents of whatever you're going to portray. So you start to enjoy it and you start to like it very much. Any sort of information that you receive, you like to talk about the character quite a lot. You like to talk about the circumstances. You like to, amongst the colleagues that are actors, there's always a sort of complicity, shall we say, of saying how crazy was what happened there or what they did. And you start to set up or create an idea, but you need information, and it's information that doesn't necessarily go to be in the film, nor can you portray it, but it can help you to pick up something of the character, knowing that every film and basically what we're doing is we're staging it. It's not reality. We're portraying it, and so therefore you're not trying to perfectly imitate a character. Because if that was the objective of a film, that would be a different thing. But I think in general, there's a reinterpretation. And so to say that, for example, even if it's a documentary, there's a point of view and there's a perspective that it changes reality, it affects it, it manipulates it, the vision, I'm not too sure. So therefore, I think it's a mixture of letting yourself go, trusting that information that you're provided, take that drive and jump into the unknown and take that adventure. And let's hope that it works well, because sometimes it doesn't work well. So therefore, that's what I think. Okay, we're on the right. We've got a question. I want to congratulate you for the film. I think that the point of view and the subject matter and the staging goes against the current of what's being done nowadays. And I think it's interesting. For Gael, I'd like to ask you, you portrayed a young Che Guevara in Motorbike Diaries, and now you're portraying a member of the Cuban government. And I'd like to ask you, what was most interested you from Oliviera Sayas about the conflict that the story tells? Why did you decide to make this film, and why you're interested? Thank you. Well, I think that both characters, the approach or the moment in which the point of view to portray the characters is that beyond, for example, the myth of these people, they are really people. So therefore, This is what happens with Ernesto before he becomes Che Guevara, and what happens with Manuel Miramontes, his cover name. So therefore, I think it's these people are, at the end of the day, have human emotions. They have a complexity, emotionally speaking, with an affective as well, sexual and spiritual, like we all have. And this is what's really interesting about all of your characters, that is to say, how to deconstruct that myth, that part, leave it a bit outside, and to go delve into that complicity and to trust yourself as well. I think that that's what I can relate to those characters, because at the end of the day, these periods are completely different, and these are two people that are incredibly different, and plus they thought and did things which are completely different as well. But thank you very much. Here on the left, we've got another question. Hi, good afternoon. Congratulations to the three of you. Questions for Penelope, two questions. First of all, what have you felt, for the three of you, to filming in Cuba? What was it like to shoot in Cuba? And secondly, Penelope, for you, what does it mean to be the image of the festival this year, apart from the Donosti Award, of course? Would you like to start? Yes. Well, obviously, it was very important for the story to have the opportunity of filming in Cuba, and just for us, it was equally important for us because we would get closer to the characters being there. Cuba is a very unique place, for better or for worse. It's full of enormous and deep contradictions, and the story addresses that issue. That is to say, it's an exploration, and it reflects upon characters that in general are conceived as the pawns of a chess game. And so to a certain extent, we wanted to try and explore them from the human standpoint, understand the drama behind these characters that a certain way are trapped in the mechanics of politics, and they're at the mercy of being run over by history, but not because of their decisions, but other decisions of other people that are more powerful than them. So, and it was very important and very interesting and quite intense as well. For me, specifically, it was very tough to be in Cuba because I'm Venezuelan. And for me, it was very tough to be there, but at the same time, it was very interesting and very moving to be able to study and carry out a human exploration of the character that quite often, because of decisions, as I said a moment ago, which aren't your own decisions, are totally run over by the wheel of history, and their personal lives are completely destroyed. And that family pain, that family tragedy between human and family relations was very important to be able to explore that. So therefore, it was a very interesting exercise for me at this time in life, go to a country like Cuba and to understand it from the inside, how they have also been victims of this ideology that's run them over. Another question there on the right.
Asay Sharif from Iran. My question is from Penelope. Well, it's interesting. First, congratulations for the award.
Thank you.
And it's interesting that you were asked about your collaboration with different directors. I would just like to mention your collaboration with an Iranian director, Mr. Asghar Farhadi. Well, before you've mentioned your experience with him as an Iranian director, but I would like to see if you have anything you would like to share with us today, and if you've seen any of other directors, other Iranian directors' movies, and if you've ever felt any interest to work with any other Iranian director. Thank you.
I had one of my best experiences working with him. I think he's like from another planet. Him as a director and as a human being is like I think he's like spiritually on a very high level. And that has to do with, doesn't have anything to do with our religion. I'm talking about like the way he sees the world. If you see a movie like A Separation and what he creates, and then you meet Asghar, you understand how only somebody like him can create that level of truth. I have to say it was also one of the most intense things that I had to do because of the nature of the story and what happened to the character. And I ended up having fever every night for the last month. Every single night I had fever, and doctors didn't know what was going on. And of course, it was from the stress of the character. But it was really, I treasure every second I spent with him, and I hope to be able to do it again. And he was trying to teach me some Farsi, because if I'm gonna work with somebody else, hopefully somebody else in Iran soon, it's gonna be him, and we have this crazy dream that it will be in Farsi, because he thinks that I could do it, so that will be my crazy next challenge, but I would love that. I adore Asghar.
Tenemos otra pregunta aquí a la...
Another question. I wanted to ask a question to the three of you. Hi. The three of you have got careers which are very international. You shoot in many different languages, and I'd like to know your opinion about what's normal for you. That's English is always very important, but there are also films, Loving Pablo, you spoke of Nelly with a Colombian accent in English. What's your situation as Latin Americans and Spanish in this struggle that there exists? If you notice that languages are advancing, or whether that bothers you. Because Assayas's film, initially it was in English, it was all the Latin American stars were there. So first of all, languages, how do you feel that feeling that English, whether it's imposed, and then there's this mixture of so many Latin Americans pretending to be Cubans. How did you live through that experience?
A ti también.
Yes, but the film was in Spanish, yes. But for example, there's a character who speaks in English, but because his wife speaks Spanish perfectly. But the idea that you've got the feeling that Spanish is progressing, or is it uncomfortable to you? How do you live it through this as actors? Yes, slowly but surely it is advancing. We fight very much to do Loving Pablo in Spanish, but the budget for that script to shoot it, we didn't manage to achieve it. We wouldn't be able to manage it. So we decided we'd do it in English with a Colombian accent. But I think it is advancing, and I look at cases like Roma, a film like that which is the great masterpiece, but there are more and more opportunities. And I think it's changed a lot at the beginning of my career in the films that I did abroad. If they gave me a character of a Brazilian or Colombian woman, I had to convince the director or the producer that I couldn't talk with my accent, that I had to talk with another accent. And sometimes they always used to say, you're not going to distinguish it, but for us, it's like an insult. I mean, what do you mean? Of course, it sounds different. And more so, we've got to educate one's ears to this. And I think that this has changed it a lot, but it's a battle that we still got a lot to do. Yes, and plus there's something that's in us as well, beyond what we can say the English that is overpowering. No, but it's something in us. Our films should be able to travel amongst our countries. That would be a tragedy, Spanish-speaking countries. That's our irresponsibility. It has to do with, I'm not too sure, a lot of lack of creativity and drive, so that, because also political, so that our films can travel abroad. We've got to have this fortune that we can understand each other in a language that we can share. And I think that we're the second language of native people that are born speaking Spanish in the world. So we've got to take full advantage of this. And this is something that we've been fighting about, and all the effort that we do and everything. And it seems that it's like a worn-out horse, but I think there will become a time, at least in our experience of making film, definitely so. In the past, it was unthought of that we'd make a film in Spanish. It was unthought of a Spanish with a budget which is a bit high. It was unthought of to be in Spanish. Now it's unthought of to make a film in English that deals with something that has to do about our history. To have made this film, the WASP network in English, would it be an insult? Would it be a waste of time, really, for the geography of a place, and also of the capacity that we have of interpreting, portraying Cubans and playing and portray, become much more professional in that sense as actors as well. So that's in us. This is something that we have to do, and I think that in every areas in film and from the audience all the way to financing, that's where our responsibility lies, so that we can see our films in our languages. Another question back there on the right.
Congratulations for the award and for whatever you have done in your career.
Thank you.
One of the first films that you made, it was in our country, in Greece, Captain Corelli's Mandolin. I don't know if you have any memory from that.
Yes.
When you received your, I have three small questions for you. When you received your Oscar, it was for Woody Allen's film. Do you have also any memories of working with him? And this year, Pedro Almodóvar and his film will represent Spain for the Oscars. How does it feel also participating in this movie? Three very small questions. Excuse me for taking so much of your time. Thanks.
Παρακαλώ, ευχαριστώ. That's it. So, yeah, I loved working in Greece, and I love Kefalonia. And we spent there the whole summer working, and it was a very magical experience because the place is so contagious, the energy, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. So, yeah, that is one that I will not forget. And then you asked me about Pedro and working with him. Like I always said, was a great experience. He doesn't do any kind of rehearsals. He does 2 takes, check the gate. Like, it's a very different rhythm than if you compare that to, for example, Pedro's way of working. Pedro likes having months of rehearsal, and I love both systems. You know, I like adapting to, if I know I'm gonna work with a director that doesn't rehearse, I'm gonna do a lot of like months of preparations by myself. That was the case working with Woody. And with Pedro, he doesn't want me to prepare with my acting teacher or do anything like that. Just arrive completely fresh and do all of that with him for months. So it's the different systems that can work for them, and it's good to be able to adapt. And you learn a lot by adapting to all these different systems. For example, Olivier Assayas, he gets crazy if you ask him to do one rehearsal. Like, we didn't rehearse at all. And there was one time that I begged for one because we had a lot of like movement, a lot of different positions and a lot of dialogue. And I said, I just need one mechanical, please, please. And he was so worried. He doesn't like it working that way. But if you ask him, he gives it to you. But he doesn't like it. And I think it's interesting for us to be able to work with all these different systems.
Tenemos tiempo.
We have time for one more question there. Congratulations for the film. Penelope, I would like to ask you, could you describe Olga's character, if you could, what were the key elements as an actress for you to approach and portray her such a real way? Because it's great, well portrayed. The accent, even if it was difficult, please explain that, because it's the most difficult, because you've been a Colombian and you speak in English. Why the Cuban accent? And I would like you to refer to the shooting in Gran Canaria, because there are parts in Miami that are shot in Gran Canaria, if that's correct. Yes, we shot 2 weeks in the Canary Islands. And you guys a bit more now, about the same time. Yes, 2 weeks. Some on location, and the jail and the Canary Islanders, as usual, treated us very well, very kindly. The accent, I was saying that because it's one of my favorite accents, because I felt like doing it. It's a marvelous accent, so therefore I dreamt so much of doing this accent, and finally I said I wanted to get right into it, months and months and months to manage to achieve it with Pavel, as I said before, and I enjoyed it very much. And to understand Olga, all of us with these characters, we had very specific information, real information, but I didn't want to imitate the character. No, I didn't want to see too many videos of her. There were a lot of interviews. No, I needed to talk to other women who thought in a similar way to her, and as of there, create my own version of this woman. There are other occasions, for example, when I portrayed Donatella, for example, I was obsessed with her. For months and months, I was studying, and we did it together. We studied all the material that we could find about them in different decades. But because you're portraying a character that everyone knows how they speak, how they move, what their gestures are, how they move their hands. They know everything about them. But in this case, they're known, but not at that level, and therefore it allows you to be freer in the way you could portray the role. There are many men and women that helped me to understand what type of woman she was. Unfortunately, we don't have time for more. A big round of applause for the cast.